Welcome to this class on Old English literature or Anglo-Saxon literature. This Anglo-Saxon period began around 449 AD and ended with the death of Edward the Confessor in 1066 AD. And when Romans abandoned England, the Anglo-Saxons of Germany invaded and settled in England, and those times were called the Dark Ages in the history of England. There were no Catholic priests remaining in England to teach the people, and Britain was cut off from the European culture and trade, and that was the time when Britain was named as England, meaning land of ankles. And but at the same time, there were a few writings which are available, and that was because of a book that was found in a monastery in Exeter. And that during that during Anglo-Saxon period, poetry preceded prose, and they were wandering minstrels who narrated stories and sang songs. The stories and poems of illiterate people. It was actually passed orally by designated storytellers called scopes. And these scopes and the poems and the stories that they created defined the values of their society and culture. And that is how we get to know the life of these Anglo-Saxon people. Coming to the themes and themes dealt by this Anglo-Saxon poets. One is they glorified war. The courage and the battle skills were honored, and also they talked about life in the sea, seafaring skills, and men gave absolute loyalty to the chieftain, about knights, romances, and they sang about exile. And coming to the society, men dominated the society, and women were, they never had any property or any rights, and they believed in fate. But later on, when Christianity was introduced, it was replaced by faith. Belief in fate was replaced by faith. And much of this Anglo-Saxon literature, they actually, we can see a blend of pagan and Christian influence. And as I have told you, it is the book that was found in a monastery in Exeter in England, that it was from that book we get to know certain writings, certain poems of those period. And especially there were two kinds of poetry during that period. One is heroic poetry, and the second one elegiac poetry, poems of lament. And the very interesting example of this heroic poetry is Beowulf, an epic in English literature. You can say the first epic in English literature, Beowulf. It's about a story. It's a long narrative of a warrior called Beowulf who fought with a monster Grendel, and how he saved a kingdom, and later on in the second part he himself becomes the king. And this Beowulf ends with his death. It's a long poem about his courage, about war, and about loyalty, about love, and so on. Actually the theme is pagan, but the values were Christian. And then we have elegiac poetry, lamenting the death of someone. And we have poems like The Wanderer, The Pearl. Many poems were there which lamented the death of their beloved. And moreover, there were a few prose writings, especially the writings or translations made by King Alfred the Great, who reigned England during 849 AD to 901 AD. And he made certain translations from Latin to Anglo-Saxon. One is Venerable Bede's The Church History, the Ecclesiastical History of England. Then Consolation of Philosophy by Boethius. Then Confessions by Saint Augustine. And also a few of the Psalms from the Bible were also translated into Anglo-Saxon tongue. So it was done during the period of Alfred the Great. And coming to another prosper, that is Venerable Bede, who wrote this Ecclesiastical History of English people. And there were certain homilies. Homilies are written religious speech or section, and a kind of instruction that is given to the people, kind of advice. Then there were works on martyrs. And then there were a few Christian writers like Sinwulf and Cadman. So this Beowulf and other writers were pagan. The authors, we don't know the author of Beowulf. It is an anonymous work, but it has a pagan origin. But we have Christian poetry with poets like Cadman and Sinwulf. This Cadman, he was not actually a poet. He was an inmate of a monastery, and one fine day he had he had an angelic visit, and who asked him to write about the creation, the fall, and about how mankind is saved by Jesus Christ. And when he woke up from the dream, he was gifted with the gifted to write poetry, and he wrote many paraphrases of the Bible, and he and also hymn of creation, the fall, and the salvation of mankind. And when we analyze these poems, and also there is another Christian poet, that is Sinwulf. Sinwulf is also another Christian poet who wrote about the fates of apostles. It's actually an account of the lives of martyrs, you can say. Then the Ascension, which is a homily, a kind of instruction to the common people. Then Juliana, Eileen, these were works by Sinwulf. He also lived during this 8th century. And when we analyze the works of this poets, we find certain features which are being repeated. One is alliteration, use of alliteration, then use of kenning. That was another characteristic feature of this Old English period. Kenning is a two-word metaphor, you can say. For example, sea is referred to as Wales Road. The road that Wales used to use for their journey. Wales Road, that is sea. Similarly, they used to have such words, kennings. So kennings, then caesura, this repetition, alliteration, they are common features that we find in Anglo-Saxon literature. So, to summarize, what we can say is that, we have pagan themes, as well as Christian themes coming together in Anglo-Saxon literature. We have Anglo-Saxon poetry, heroic poetry, and poems of lament. Then we have a few ballads kind of things, songs, then prose, Venerable Bede's ecclesiastical, the history of English, ecclesiastical history of English people. Then we have translations that was King Alfred the Great made. He actually compiled this Chronicles of King Alfred, where he talked about the lives of Anglo-Saxon kings, the lives of Anglo-Saxon people, the society, the culture, the tradition that they followed. Everything is there in this Chronicles. And also we have Christian poets like Cadman and Sinwulf. Just go through all these main writers and writings that are available, that are available to us from this Old English period. So this is just a brief account of Anglo-Saxon literature that you need to keep in mind before going to this Norman conquest and Norman literature. So we'll deal with this Norman literature in detail. That is module 2. That is the topic that we will have to discuss. So before that, this is just an introduction that will lead to this Norman literature. So this is what happened during the Old English period, and with the death of Edward the Confessor and with the invasion of Norman, William the Duke of Normandy, we have the Middle English period or the Norman period. So see you in the next class on Norman conquest and Anglo-Norman literature. Thank you.